Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today, and today we're going to be discussing the NFC West. As we've been doing so far in our last couple of episodes, we're going by division, and today on our slate, we have the NFC West. We'll go ahead and give our record predictions for each and every team in that division. Then we'll go ahead and talk about the San Francisco 49ers and whether or not this season is now or never for them. And then we'll go ahead and close out with the Seattle Seahawks and whether or not we believe a regression is incoming. So, of course, before we jump into all of that, temperature check, how's everybody doing?
Man, we got a month before the NFL season kickstarts, September 7th. I think they got the Lions and the Chiefs kicking us off. So, we're inching closer and closer.
It's going to be a long month, man, but we're going to give you guys some good content, and we're going to start off with the NFC West today. Come on.
Hey, man, it's been a wonderful week. Earlier this week, woke up from my nap to Justin Jefferson being a top 2 player in the NFL on the top 100 list. And then today, Jordan Addison making his debut as a Minnesota Viking. So football is back, man. I'm very, very excited. But aside from all of that, let's go ahead and jump right into it. NFC West record predictions. I have to kick us off.
Well, I don't think this should be that much of a hot take, but, I think the Cardinals are probably going to be the worst team in the NFL. I think when I look at this roster, they're essentially devoid of talent, especially after losing DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you have Marquise Brown, Budda Baker, but really outside of that, I mean, how much talent is really on this roster with Kyler Murray being out with a torn knee? I mean, Colt McCoy is going to be their starting quarterback, and I don't expect them to win that many games. So when I look at this team, I think for them at least, I can see a season where they finish 4-13. They're going to go for that number 1 overall pick, and that's what they have in mind. The next up is the Rams. I think the Rams, Stafford, he's probably going to be healthy this season. They're far away from that 2021 season where, they went all the way to 2022 season where they won the Super Bowl. But, I don't think they're ever going to reach those heights again. They're going to be a pretty mid team. I can see 7 wins on the books for them. I think that's a fair assessment for this roster. I mean, they lost Jalen Ramsey. Aaron Donald's still there, but they lost a lot of guys. Leonard Floyd isn't there anymore. Bobby Wagner, who I think was kind of underrated for them, he's gone as well. So they lost a lot of the defensive talent that they had. And overall, on the offensive end, it's really just Cooper Kupp left. And, Cam Akers, he might have a breakout season, but I don't expect much from this offense. So I say 7-10 for this team. The next team up, I think the Seattle Seahawks. And, when you look at this team and the amount of stuff that they got done in free agency in the draft and what they added to this roster and what they were able to produce last season, when I look at them, I predict, they can up their win total from 9 to 10, maybe potentially push to 11. But just to be safe on the safer side, I think 10-7 is a fair assessment for this team. Maybe 11 wins is a potential because when I look at this offense, after adding a guy like JSN, who to me is an elite separator, now you have Tyler Lockett, DK, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think that's an elite trio, one of the better wide receiver cores in the entire NFL, if not the best, up there with the best of them. And then next up, you got the 49ers. I mean, they're always going to be competing in this division. I mean, you have an elite defense with those weapons of Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this team is just loaded. And to me, when I look at this system, it doesn't matter which quarterback comes in as long as they're competent. They're going to get the job done, whether it's Brock Purdy, whether that's Sam Darnold, whether that's Trey Lance, whoever comes in, they're going to be competent. So when I look at the 49ers, I think 12-5 is on the cards for them.
Yeah, man, we're going to start off with the Cardinals, man. Y'all know me. Not the biggest fan of the Cardinals. Last year, I predicted them 5 wins. This year, no Hopkins, no J.J. Watt. Kyler Murray might be done sitting out for the whole year. If they, they start off slow, they go 0-6, 0-7. They might just hold them out. And I think I'd be giving 4 wins. I think it's a little too much. I think they get 2, maybe 3 wins. 3-14, maybe 2-15 for them. It's the best way for them to get that number 1 pick. And they have that Houston first round pick as well. So it's another top 10 pick in the cards. And for them, just at this point, it's rebuild. I don't know if they want to continue on with Kyler Murray, but they got a guy projected number one next year. Caleb Williams coming out of UC. He's a phenomenal quarterback, and they might have to gamble, trade away Murray or rock with Murray and just build up on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So I see them going 2 to 3 wins. Colt McCoy's behind quarterback. They drafted, I think, like a 7th-round rookie or 6th-round rookie last year. He's going to be backing up Colt McCoy. So, offensively, Marquise Brown and James Conner, that's all you have. And other than that, it's a pretty horrible team. So I got them 3 wins. Rams, I agree with Abdi. I do see them going 7-10. I feel like, they're going to go away from that old-style offense that they used to have back in the past, and they're going to go, rely more on the run game when they had Jared Goff back in the day, force feed the ball to what's-his-face, Cam Akers, and what type of receiver Cooper Kupp is. Him and Stafford, they got this connection. They're going to eat. And other than that, on the offensive side of the ball, they really don't have much. The O-line's pretty beat up. Defensively, they lost a lot of players, like Abdi mentioned, Ramsey, Floyd, Aaron Donald's by himself. It's probably his last year. He's been contemplating retirement the last couple of years. Every offseason, should I retire this offseason or should they pay me more? Should I retire this offseason? Should they pay me more? And I feel like this is going to be his last season on the team, but I do see them going 7-10, middle of the pack team. They do got a okay roster, not a horrible roster, so it's going to be an okay season for them, man. These last 2 spots, man. I don't want to be crazy and all, but I'm gonna give the Niners respect. They're gonna be 12-5 this year. I feel like they're gonna win the division again. Offensively and defensively, these guys are stacked at every single position. Offensively, especially with McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, they got a phenomenal roster. Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. It doesn't matter what type of quarterback he puts in there. They're gonna turn up. It could be Lance, it could be Darnold, it can be Purdy. And they still, they're still going to win. And we don't got to speak about that defense. Top 2 defense in the NFL, one healthy, one of the best defenses. They got one of the best linebackers. We got one of the best defensive players on the line as well. And I do see them going 12-5. And for my Seahawks, I do see an 11-6 season. And I feel like our defense is going to be a step up from what it is last year. I feel like we, picked up, some spots that we needed to stop the run defense, the run game. We got Bobby Wagner back. Jamal Adams is healthy. We got Draymond Jones from the Broncos, the D tackle, big stuffer. So, there's some key positions that we got back on the defensive side of the ball. We upgraded in the draft as well. We got Jason, and we picked up Devon Witherspoon from Illinois. He's another phenomenal quarterback. And I feel like our team is going up and up. Geno Smith got the offensive talent that he needed. We got the great run game with Kenneth Walker. And I do see us maybe 12-5, but 11-6 at best. There goes my take.
Okay, so Abdi gave the Cardinals 4 wins. You gave them 2, 3 max. You guys are being extremely generous. I mean, I know this is the NFL and any given Sunday is a real thing, but I think this might be one of the the only teams that go 0-17. There's nothing good that's going to come out of the Arizona Cardinals season when the season kicks off. There's nothing good that's going to come out of it. I'm looking at their schedule right now, and there's maybe a couple wins potentially on the cards when they play the Falcons or when they play the Texans and things like that. But other than that, they play some really good teams that are extremely better than them. And the Arizona Cardinals right now, they're directionless. I understand that they're not going to be a very good team this year, and there's going to be some tough decisions that need to be made once this season is over. But I got these guys going over 0-17. It might be the crazy take at this point, but maybe in December I might be right. But I can't see these guys winning a single game this year. There's honestly no need to be competing at a high level because the season's already lost once Kyler Murray was announced that he tore his ACL last season. And so I'll go ahead and give these guys 0-17. For the Rams, we're pretty much all in the same ballpark. Maybe about 7-10 wins, 7-10 record. Maybe I think I have them at 6-11 at worst, 7-10 at best. This roster overall, obviously, they let go of Jalen Ramsey and they still got, Aaron Donald around. Like Big H mentioned, he's going to be retiring pretty soon or maybe going in a different direction, maybe in a different franchise, play out a couple more years, but he won't be on this Rams roster next season. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, although Matthew Stafford, claims that he's playing his best football as of lately and he's feeling the best ever, the best that he's ever felt. I'm not really going to buy that. Obviously a lot of people are going to come into training camp and say the craziest things and, just hype themselves up and pretty much put no doubt and no fear into anybody's ears. And so, we really just don't know Matthew Stafford's health and how he's feeling and how he's doing. But We'll see come week 1. But him and Cooper Cup, obviously, that connection is strong. So I think 7-10 is respectable for this franchise. The Seattle Seahawks, I got these guys finishing with the same record they did last year. I can't see this team getting any better. Obviously, they've made some moves in the draft and then some quiet free agent moves as well. But I'm looking at this team from top to bottom. My issues aren't really on the offensive side. It's more so on the front seven defensively. Obviously their secondaries can go toe to toe with any secondary in the NFL. My only issue is that front seven. They struggled heavily stopping the run last year, and I'm not too sure if any of their free agent acquisitions are capable enough to fill up that gap. Obviously, they went after a corner with their first round pick in this past draft. When obviously they probably could have addressed a different need if obviously they want to stop the run. We all remember when Josh Jacobs ran all over them last season, but 9-8 though, not bad, but obviously not really better than what they did last year. And then obviously the San Francisco 49ers. I think these guys are probably going to run the division for the foreseeable future. 12-5 record for sure. I can honestly see them finishing 13-4. The San Francisco 49ers are just one of the most well-constructed franchises in the NFL. Although they haven't had a Super Bowl to show for it in recent history, we all know how beautifully constructed their roster is from top to bottom. And so 12-5 at worst, 13-4 at best. Whoever it is under center, whether it's Brock Purdy or Trey Lance, these guys just pretty much have a Rolls Royce roster, and Brock Purdy and Trey Lance are just in the driver's seat. It don't take much to drive a Rolls Royce. You just got to know how to move the steering wheel, put your foot on the gas pedal. That's about it. Let the car do its thing and show it off to the world. But 13-5, 13-4, 12-5 at worst for the Niners. But that is my NFC West predictions. But let's go ahead and go back to the Arizona Cardinals for a little bit. As we all know, this season is going to be an extremely lost season. Kyler Murray will not be playing. He has the potential to come back at midseason, but will the Arizona Cardinals bring him back if they're already having a losing record at that point? Might as well try to tank for a higher draft pick. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. Now they don't necessarily have a wide receiver one. Their wide receiver one is Marquise Brown. And as Big H mentioned, Caleb Williams is in this upcoming draft. And if the Arizona Cardinals are looking to rebuild, what move should they make, in order for them to jumpstart their rebuild? Because they have Kyler Murray under center right now, and we all know the contract that he received from the Arizona Cardinals. I think it was maybe last offseason. And now they're in a situation where they have the potential to get the number 1 overall pick and potentially a top 5, top 10 pick from the Houston Texans. And so do they keep Kyler Murray, maybe move off the number 1 overall pick and like the Bears did, or do they just move off from Kyler, draft Caleb, and then go about it like that?
I think they should just decide to stick with Kyler Murray. I mean, you handed him an extension, and I do believe Kyler Murray is obviously a very talented player. Don't get me wrong. When I view him talent-wise, I mean, the ability to get out the pocket, the arm strength, and the zip on his throws. Multiple years where he started off the season hot. He was in MVP discussions, and then later on injuries caught up, and a lot went through those seasons with the Arizona Cardinals. But when I look at Kyler Murray, I think that they're better off just keeping him and kickstarting their franchise off with the high-end defensive talent, maybe picking up an offensive lineman or talent at the wide receiver position. I mean, when you have guys like Marvin Harris Jr., guys like that don't come often. I mean, he's one of the highest graded college wide receivers we've seen. Guys since Jamar Chase, since Julio. Those type of talents don't come often at the wide receiver position. So, when you have 2 picks that can go that high, I feel like they can go for a position where they can go for a defensive end, or they can go for a high-end defensive talent, and they can go for a guy like Marvin Harris Jr. If possible. I think keeping Kyler Murray is probably the best decision at this point. I think they know what they're going to get out of Kyler Murray, and they have seen flashes of what they want from Kyler Murray. It's just him putting the pieces together and them just keeping him healthy and him being able to fix on issues like his issues are not necessarily talent. It's more so outside of talent. It's more so of his attitude and his work ethic. But when it comes to talent, I think Kyler Murray, he's very, very extremely talented young quarterback. It's just issues outside of that I have problems with. 2020, 2021, like I mentioned, he started off the season hot. Same thing. They slowed down. But I would keep him, and then I would just draft two different types of talent that this team need. I mean, at the end of the day, they're devoid of talent. And I don't think it's really at the quarterback position. I think it's everywhere else. I mean, when J.J. Watt left, he was probably their best defensive player outside of Budda Baker. So I think that's what they need to target.
Yeah, they just paid Kyler Murray. I don't think it's an opportunity to trade him. I don't know what you're gonna get back. I mean, you look at the market. I don't think he goes for first round. To me, and it's like it's a waste of a pick, waste of a trade. If you trade him, it's a whole lot of money for me. It's like, hey, might as well just keep him. You get the first pick, you load up on the defensive talent. You have the Texans' first round pick. You fix up your O line, or you stack up on draft picks, and essentially you just rebuild in the drafts. Hopefully, some people come during free agency, but you don't have to waste another first round pick in the quarterback after how long Murray been on the team? 4 to 5 years. Hasn't been a while, and he's not a top 5 quarterback. I mean, he got paid top 5 quarterback money, but you got to take the losses where you got the losses at. You lose JJ Watt, you lose DeAndre Hopkins, you lose almost everybody on this team. It's time to rebuild. Keep Kyler Murray, you get 2 first round picks, and then that's where you started off at. So I don't essentially think they should trade him. I mean, Caleb Williams is crazy talent, but what does that fix for the team?
I'm actually just very distraught. I really can't believe what I'm hearing right now. You guys are pretty much saying if they land the number 1 overall pick, and we all know the consensus number 1 pick is going to be Caleb Williams, you guys are saying that the Cardinals got to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I'm saying that they should just keep Kyler Murray and just go for 2 other positions.
I'm not too entirely sold on that, man. I mean, I think about it like this. I think obviously we're hearing reports about, this Caleb Williams guy from USC. Obviously, we've been hearing it for a couple of years now, and obviously he has the opportunity to enter the draft next year. And so, people are saying this is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. We all know how special of a quarterback Andrew Luck was when he entered the league. And so the way that I'm looking at it is, if you're able to land the number 1 overall pick, and, obviously Kyler Murray, even if he doesn't play this upcoming season, it's really going to come down to their new head coach, who I believe is Gannon from the Philadelphia Eagles, the old defensive coordinator. It's really going to come down to who he really wants under center, because obviously they pay Kyler Murray all that money, and if they end up just moving him off to a different franchise, it's a huge salary dump. And so you essentially draft Caleb Williams, who's going to be on a cheaper contract and who could be potentially better than Kyler Murray. And so I think it makes 100% makes so much sense for them to just do that, instead of just kind of keep that number 1 overall pick, keep Kyler Murray, and pretty much.
I mean, who says they have to keep the number 1 overall pick? They can get a haul for that number 1 overall pick, if anything. How many teams do you think would be desperate to have Caleb Williams?
A lot of teams, but the thing is, though, this guy's they're saying he's one of the best prospects coming out of.
That's my point, though. If his hype is that high, right, and I agree with his hype, I think the guy's an absolute phenomenal quarterback. If you're in that top 5 or you're in that top 10, and you're like, okay, my quarterback position is particularly great right now, you're looking at that number 1 overall pick like, yo, what can I give up? And the Cardinals, if they get that number 1 overall pick, they have all the leverage in the world. So a team is going to end up giving up a haul if they want that number 1 overall pick. It's like, think about how much the Texans had to give up to have 2 picks in the top 5. So now imagine the Cardinals, this is for a number 1 overall pick. This is for a Caleb Williams. They're going to give up a haul for that. So I think, if you want to fast track a rebuild, that's the best way to do it. A team is going to end up giving up a haul. And I don't think it's as simple as moving off of Kyler Murray's contract. I think it's a bit trickier than that. And from what it seems like, from what Jonathan Gannon said, it seems like their target is to win games. But, at the end of the day, I don't really believe that. I think that they're going to end up losing enough games to get that number 1 overall pick. But if you're a top 5 team, you're going to end up eyeing that number 1 overall pick and thinking, okay, I'm going to give up a haul to get this guy Caleb Williams. So I just think that's what the Cardinals should do.
Okay, the thing is, though, we're looking at every team in the league at this point, because now the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock at number 1. That number one overall pick is available. What team really needs a quarterback like that? Looking at the AFC East, the Bills got their quarterback, the Dolphins got their quarterback, the Patriots, there's some potential there. We'll say that's one. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers, they're not taking anybody. Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, the potential is there too. So that's 2 teams. Broncos are going to keep Russ. Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, and Browns are not going to move off from any of their quarterbacks. Jaguars, Colts, Texans, not going to move out from their quarterbacks. Titans are they're probably another potential team that might want to move up in the draft. Now we move on to the NFC. Eagles, Cowboys, Giants. I'm very hesitant to say the Commanders, but it's going to be that depends on Sam Howell and what he does. But it's a potential team, so we'll go ahead and put that in there. Niners, no. Seahawks, no. Rams, no. And then obviously the Cardinals are on the clock. Vikings, I don't see us making a move like that. Lions, I can't see it. Green Bay,
Why can't you see
so.
the Lions? Or is that because of the games that they're going to win?
Yeah, because I think the Lions are going to win a little. I think the Lions are going to be just fine. I think Jared Goff was.
My thing is though, it's like team situations change throughout the year. Like a lot of stuff can happen. Whether that's injuries can be, they pick up injuries, or a team that you didn't expect to be like. Let's say for example, the Rams are just dog shit. Like that's a potential as well. But I don't know if they have their pick this year. In the first round, I'm not too sure about that. Those guys' livers are future for that Super Bowl. But let's say there's potentially a team that unexpectedly that you think that was going to lose that many games. They lose games, and already the teams that you mentioned, and there's a lot of team dynamics that can just change throughout the year. So, like I think teams would be willing. Like if you're in the top 5, you're going to be like, yo, like what do the Cardinals want for that number 1 overall pick if it's Caleb Williams? Like I think teams would be willing to move up a lot just to get that number 1 pick.
Hypothetically speaking, if the Arizona Cardinals get that number 1 overall pick and they aren't able to find a suitor and a buyer for Kyler Murray
at the price that they're looking for.
Yeah, at the price that they're looking for. Do you think that they still use that number 1 overall pick on Caleb Williams and have him just battle it out with Kyler Murray?
I don't think they do that just because, didn't they have a situation with Josh Rosen where they drafted Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray came?
Let's not utter Josh Rosen and Caleb Williams in the same sentence, man.
No, I'm saying they had the same situation like that. You drafted a guy that high just to replace him the following year. I don't think that's something that they'd want to do.
But see, here's the thing, though. The reason why they did that was because Cliff Kingsbury was a new head coach for the Arizona Cardinals, and Josh Rosen wasn't his guy. And so he saw an opportunity and said, I'm going to go get myself a better quarterback, and I don't think it's going to be a battle at all. Kyler Murray's my guy. He was the best quarterback in that draft class, and Josh Rosen is going to have to suffer. And so,
how much sense does it make to have two guys battle it out when you gave one an extension just a year ago?
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think the Cardinals will do that, but I just think Caleb Williams is too good of a prospect to pass up on. Even if you get a haul for him, even if you get a haul for that number 1 overall pick, I'm not too sure if that haul is going to be a lot better than what Caleb Williams is going to be as a quarterback in the NFL when he comes in from day 1. And so that's just my only issue with it. And also, I just honestly don't know if Kyler Murray is Gannon's guy. Like, if I just don't know if Gannon is gonna see enough of Kyler Murray this upcoming season to determine, like, hey, Kyler Murray is my guy for the future. Let's go ahead and try to move off from this number 1 overall pick so we can get some more assets, kind of like what the Bears did with Justin Fields. So Justin Fields was their guy. No need for that number 1 overall pick. Let's go try to get some weapons and some more draft capital. And so, but in order for the Bears, they've seen Justin Fields on tape. They got some sort of tape on Justin Fields, and so they made that decision on themselves, saying like, yo, we don't need a quarterback. We're just gonna stick with him. I'm just not sure if Gannon is gonna use film from years before he got there to make that decision.
To be fair, there's a huge gap between Caleb Williams and the quarterbacks that came out of this year. Like if Caleb Williams was in this draft, like there'd probably be more of a, like, I think I'd lean way more to Caleb Williams over a guy like Justin Fields because the tape, at least Kyler Murray has that 2020 tape, that 2021 tape, though when they were starting off 7-0, 6-0, whatever it is. I just feel like you gave a guy an extension a year ago. Like it doesn't make much sense after a year of giving this guy an extension just to be like, okay, let's deal him for however great of a talent Caleb Williams is. It's like you already had your like how like you already built your team around what you wanted for Kyler Murray, and you already have an idea what he's gonna be. If you draft and I feel like the Cardinals, they do rate Kyler Murray highly to be able to give him that contract, and so I just think like this team that's like completely devoid of talent, like you can start in multiple positions and if anything, if you get a haul for that number one overall pick, a lot of teams would be hunting for it. So that's like a huge way to just rebuild your roster at one point.
I completely get it. I just personally feel like, man, Caleb Williams is just too good of a prospect to pass up on. But it would make sense in their situation to use that number one overall pick as leverage to any of these franchises that might be desperate once the season is over. But aside from the Arizona Cardinals, man, this Los Angeles Rams team, although we had these guys going 7-10, I'm honestly just confused as to what direction these guys are trying to go in. I mean, I think first things first, I think this is going to be Sean McVay's last year as a head coach for this team. I think, this past offseason, he was contemplating about leaving and going into broadcasting. I think with the way this upcoming season is going to go for them, with them finishing with a 7-10 record, I'm not too sure if he's going to be sold enough to come back. Aaron Donald's already contemplating retirement as well. They're kind of already in a terrible situation because they traded off all their draft capital and sold their soul for that one Super Bowl. Whether or not that Super Bowl was worth it, Rams fans think it was worth it. Obviously some other people might disagree. But for the Rams, where do these guys go after this season? If this season, because this is going to be a lost season, it's going to be a 7-10 season, if anything, and I just don't know where these guys go.
I mean, they're kind of stuck as it is right now. I mean, they leveraged their future for the Super Bowl. I think it was worth it. Any team that wins a Super Bowl, I think you can't really complain. The whole point of, I think, teams sacrificing their picks and making moves is to be able to win a Super Bowl, and I think that's a trade-off that they got. That's the cost that they came at. But for this team, I think after this year, they're going to be making essentially just getting rid of their older players. I mean, we might even see Cooper Kupp potentially after this year be gone. It really depends, but they already moved on from Jalen Ramsey. Aaron Donald might retire this year. Matthew Stafford. If Sean McVay's gone, who knows if Stafford, is going to remain on this roster. But I think this is probably this last year's team. This last year is going to be the last time that they're going to be competitive. At least I think for the most part after this year is when they really start to enter their rebuild. I think this year they're kind of stuck with the pieces that they have with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, which is enough to get you some wins, but not enough to compete. So after this year, you're going to see them, kind of focus in a specific direction. And I don't think Sean McVay is going to be a one to go with that direction. So we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I do not see them continuing in this direction. Sooner or later, it was going to be a rebuild. They're at they had a good 3 to 4 years. They sold everything. They want a chip. I mean, you win a Super Bowl. A lot of teams don't get that opportunity. So for me, if I was a fan of that team, I'll be happy with it. But at the same time, I got to look forward to the future. And it's going to be a long, long, tough rebuild. Aaron Donald is probably done. McVay's done. Stafford's on his last legs. He's probably over. You probably can't get anything for him. Cooper Kupp, you send him in the trade market. You probably can get some picks back for him. But at this point, it's, going back into the draft and getting a lot of picks back and just hopefully rebuilding and finding some gems in the draft, So they knew what they were doing when they sold a lot of these picks and built that super team a couple years ago. I mean, they understood it. And they probably have a plan to rebuild, so we'll see what happens.
I mean, I know you're happy these guys are going to be falling off the face of the earth really soon. I mean, the Cardinals have already there. The Rams will be there. It'll just be a 2-team race. Be easy sledding for you guys.
Tired of Aaron Donald killing us every single week, man. Can't wait for that guy to retire. Cannot wait for him to retire.
Yeah, he's almost out the door soon. I just lost my train of thought. I was just going to say something, but aside from that, it'll get back to me soon. We'll go ahead and move on off of the NFC West predictions, and then we'll go ahead and move into the San Francisco 49ers and this upcoming season and how it's a do or die season for these guys. Since 2019, these guys have had one Super Bowl appearance, 3 NFC Championship games, with no Super Bowl ring to show for it. And so it's reached a point now with the San Francisco 49ers where they've been plagued with injuries at the quarterback position. Obviously last year was a terrible year for them. Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, all going down in one season. That's unheard of in the NFL. 3 quarterbacks, your first, second, and third string quarterbacks all going down. And they all went down at tough times. Trey Lance early on in the season, Jimmy Garoppolo towards the end of the season, and then Brock Purdy in arguably his biggest game of his career, the NFC Championship game, against a very, very tough Philadelphia Eagles team. But aside from all of that, I think the clock is ticking for this 49ers for this 49ers football team, because obviously we all know these guys have the best constructed roster in the NFL, but obviously with Trent Williams aging right now, really carrying the offensive line, he's about 35 years old. He's not going to be coming back next year. And then you got to pay these guys contracts. Nick Bosa's up for extension real soon. You also got to pay Brandon Ayuk really soon. If you already paid one receiver, do you have enough money to pay for another receiver? And what happens if this season doesn't go as planned? It doesn't cap off with a Super Bowl. Do you maybe go in a different direction and grab a quarterback? I think they just might have to do that. But for the San Francisco 49ers, how big of a season is it for them in 2023?
I think at this point now, for them, the 49ers have always been held back either by health or just the circumstance at the quarterback position. So, 2019, Jimmy Garoppolo, they had a chance to win that game, and unfortunately, the Niners don't win that game. Mahomes magic. The next year, injuries catch up. The year after that, then you have the whole situation with the dropped interception against the Rams. The following year, again, unlucky with their quarterback position getting hurt. I think for them, it's just a matter of staying healthy. Kittle, he tends to get injured. The offensive line has just been, outside of Trent Williams, when you look at it, it's not a particularly great unit. And at the same time, you have those wide receivers out there. I feel like this is a year that the Niners have to put it together just because of the amount of talent that they have at a singular point of time. Like, I don't think you're going to have a better collection of guys at one point, because next year you're going to have a bunch of free agents. You're going to have to pay Nick Bosa. Brandon Ayuk's extension is going to be coming up. You have a lot going on with this team, and I think the NFL is a very, very short window. You're not going to be able to compete every single year. Some years you're probably going to get unlucky with injuries, and the Niners have gotten unlucky with injuries. So I think this is a year where they have to look at it like it's a do or die situation. Every year we're competing, every year we're making deep playoff ones, but we're not getting the job done. I think this is the year that they have to look at themselves and think, okay, this is the year we have to at least try to stay healthy, number one, and number two, just be able to compete. And so for the Niners, I think just health is the biggest key for them in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree the window's closing soon. For them, it's they get to the end and bam, something happens, or there's an injury, or the quarterback's not up to par with the other team's quarterback. And it's like I said, it's those two things really. It's the injuries and their quarterbacks, not showing up to performance in big time games. We've seen that with Jimmy G against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and a couple other times with him in playoff games and playoff moments. I can't say Brock Purdy because he got hurt last year. Trey Lance got hurt, but for them, it's a key thing. Can they stay healthy throughout a full season, especially with that type of offense and defense that they have? Them for health is the number one key thing. Can a quarterback stay healthy for them going into the playoffs? So, I mean, yeah, it's boom or bust for Kyle Shanahan. I feel like it's his opportunity to win the Super Bowl. I feel like he should have had a Super Bowl under his belt already. It's about time he gets one, and I feel like it's kind of coming down. So I do put them on the pedestal that it's Super Bowl bust for them.
Is Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat for you if he doesn't deliver?
Not really. Yeah, not really. I feel like Kyle Shanahan is one of those coaches that he's performed very well, and with the circumstances, a lot of people say that, hey, it's not his fault that they lost this game, or hey, it's not his fault that they, it's his quarterback fault. But that's what they're preaching for. This guy knows how to control the offensive team. He can win without a quarterback. But when they get to that big time game, that blame falls onto the quarterback. So, I mean, I do know the Niners probably not gonna put him on the hot seat, but if I was a GM owner, he's gonna get some heat from me.
So, would you guys say the Niners are probably under the most pressure this year to win a Super Bowl out of every team?
For me, yeah.
I mean, they're definitely up there. I think them and like the Eagles and the Cowboys.
I don't see the Eagles. I really don't see the Eagles.
I mean, they kind of have.
I don't think the Eagles are under a lot of pressure though.
Why aren't
the Niners?
I mean, when you look at the roster that they have like last year, there was no excuses not to win the Super Bowl, and they were considered a young team. Everybody excused it. This year, like they have a complete roster. I think it would go the Niners.
I don't think a lot of people excused the Super Bowl last year.
which
It was a close one. There's no excuses. They just lost. That's it.
Yeah, but I'm saying with the roster that they have though, like you can't point at a specific spot of the Eagles and be like, okay, they're kind of weak in that. That makes sense why they lost. I mean, on every single level, these guys are a complete roster. And then if you're not able to win a Super Bowl, it's not particularly, oh, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts. I'm looking at the entire roster as it is. Why they should be under pressure when people look at it to win a Super Bowl. I think the Niners and Cowboys are definitely ahead of them. Just because, especially a team like the Cowboys. I mean, every single year, the expectation for them is to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's a delusion in their fans, but they're definitely one of the teams up there. But when I look at the Eagles, I mean, the roster is built to go to the Super Bowl, built to win the Super Bowl, so they should be under pressure just because of what they have constructed.
I mean, the thing is, I disagree with Philly because I just think, of course, we all know their roster construction and how they've been building their team, and they're up there with the Niners for arguably the best constructed roster in all of football. And obviously, Jalen Hurts took an extreme leap this past season, MVP level type of leap, and that's exactly why they made it to the Super Bowl. But unfortunately, they just didn't win a Super Bowl. They ended up losing to obviously the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And obviously, we all know how that game went. It's not like they underperformed or anything like that. They just played to the best of their ability, and then obviously, a couple things just didn't go their way. But when I think of pressure, I think of consistently underperforming and underachieving each and every season. Obviously, like if the Philadelphia Eagles made it to 3 NFC Championship games and 1 Super Bowl, and they come away with no Super Bowl, I would 100% be in agreement with you that obviously they're probably going to be one of the teams under the most pressure. But I just don't see it that way because I think their window is wide open right now. Well, obviously with how wide open the NFC is, these guys are going to be in the NFC Championship game with ease, with their eyes closed, just how it was last year when they had that bye. They ended up playing the Giants. They waxed them. They ended up playing the Niners. Brock Purdy gets hurt, so we'll never know how that game would have ended. They ended up waxing the Niners, and then they just faced a real tough test in the Super Bowl. It's going to be interesting to see them, have a tough test before the Super Bowl and see how they're able to react to that. That way, they're kind of built for the Super Bowl if they end up matching up with the Kansas City Chiefs again, or if it's the Bengals or any other top team in the AFC. But I don't think when I think of pressure, I don't think about them initially first. I would probably say the Buffalo Bills would be one team that's probably under the most pressure to deliver because we've been hearing for years about this Josh Allen guy and how great of a quarterback he is and how he has his cannon of an arm and all that stuff. But come postseason time, there's not really much to show for it. Like obviously he had that one great game against the Kansas City Chiefs where they went toe for toe and unfortunately a coin flip really decided that game. But they had an opportunity again to overtake them, but they came up short. They had an opportunity again, to make a name for themselves. This past season, they were hunting for that number 1 overall seed in the AFC in order for them to secure home field advantage so they could play a home playoff game. They weren't able to secure a home field advantage throughout the entirety of the playoffs, but they had a home playoff game. And what happened? They just got outplayed by Joe Burrow from start to finish. There was never a point in that game where the Buffalo Bills are like, we could turn this thing around. The Bengals are starting to slip away. There was never a point in that game. The Bengals controlled that from start to finish, and literally they were the home team. And so I think the Bills, the Niners, probably the 2 teams that are under the extreme pressure to win a Super Bowl this upcoming year. The Dallas Cowboys, they say they have Super Bowl expectations every year, and they just end up coming up short. So it's like even when they had a mid roster, they would say Super Bowl or bust. So it's just like, we're just going to have to see it to believe it. But for me, the 2 teams would be the Niners and then the Bills. But the Bills would definitely be over the Niners for the teams under the most pressure to win a Super Bowl this season.
Yeah, that's fair. Just because the Bills, outside of that one game that Josh Allen had, I think that's kind of boosted his stock. And now you look back since then, he wasn't able to overtake the Chiefs. He hasn't been able to overtake. You had people saying he's right there as a 1B to Mahomes. People went as far as saying that, and then ever since then, some people don't even have him in their top 2, top 3. So I do think that the Bills are under like an immense amount of pressure. I think the Niners. For the most part, when I look at them, I don't think people are like the Niners keep underperforming. I think for them, it's more so of like a circumstance thing than it is more so of underperforming. Because I do think when the Niners are healthy and they're in the playoffs, they're going to perform like 100%. They're going to get the job done. Some things unfortunately just didn't go their way. They dropped the interception. the injuries that they had the year before. You know, they had 18 guys on IR that 2020 season. The year after this year as well. You know, your quarterback getting injured. So I think for them, it's more so about circumstances. But the Bills, I 100% agree. It's about Josh Allen just performing in these games that they need him.
Hear me out on this idea. This is an idea I've been floating around for about 2 weeks now about the Niners, and I think, okay, let's say the Niners get to another NFC Championship game. They just can't get over the hump. They lose to whether it's the Philadelphia Eagles or Dallas Cowboys, whoever it is. They just don't end up going back to the Super Bowl, but they get stuck at that. They get stuck at the NFC Championship game. Do they just go into the free agency market and sign a guy like Kirk Cousins to solve their quarterback issues?
I think they definitely look at their quarterback position, like 100%. That's because like every single year, people have been kind of bugging Kyle Shanahan about, like, let's get a quarterback. Whether they could have attempted to get a guy like Aaron Rodgers, or they could have attempted to get a guy like Kirk Cousins, or
even Tom Brady when he was a free agent.
Tom Brady when he was a free agent, like they've always bugged Kyle Shanahan about getting a quarterback. And, his system is built to be able to enhance any quarterback that he puts in there. But the thing about a system is that it's only limited as far as the guy that you're putting in there. When you have a great system, it kind of covers the weaknesses of a quarterback. You're having a lot going on. You have great wideouts and great options to throw to. But when it comes to these fine margins, that's when you see the great quarterbacks show up. The Joe Burrows, the Patrick Mahomes, all these big time quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts. You look at Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts. He has a great system around him. He has great wide receivers, great offensive line. But that was probably the best game of his entire career, just based off how he performed. He's making throw after throw. So your systems only goes as far as the guy that's throwing the football. So, Jimmy G, he was built for that system, but, when it comes to these fine margins, he wasn't able to get the job done. So I think they're going to definitely look into free agency like, hey, we need a quarterback now. Kirk Cousins would definitely fit the system. He's a borderline top 10 quarterback. He would come in and slot right away into this Kyle Shanahan system. So
I don't believe so. I feel like Kyle Shanahan, he's too much in control. Way too much in control. This guy had opportunities to get Rodgers. He had opportunities to get Brady. He had other opportunities to get better quarterbacks, but he's stuck with Jimmy G. He's stuck with Trey Lance, and he's sticking with Brock Purdy. Regardless of how far they go, if they go 13-3, 13-4, 12, 14-3, go deep into the playoffs, and Brock Purdy's the guy leading them there, he's not going to go into free agency and say, I need a better quarterback. He's the type of coach that I'm in control. If I get a star quarterback, I can't do what I want with him. I can't run the plays I want. He's going to do this. He's going to want to make his own calls. That's the type of person I think Shanahan is. That's why I don't see him succeeding or winning the chip. I feel like that's been a problem for him for many years. He hasn't accepted him being second fiddle to a star quarterback and him being a coach rather than somebody trying to control the position, acting like he knows the position more than the quarterback does. So for me, I don't see that happening. They're going to do phenomenally well this year with Brock Purdy or whoever's behind quarterback. And he's going to be like, oh, we're just still a step away. Hey, it's unlucky this year. Next year, we're going to go right back with the quarterback. And plus, like you guys mentioned before this, the money issue. Kirk Cousins is the type of quarterback that's going to guarantee $25 to $30 million on his contract. I don't think the Niners have that. So, yeah, I don't see them going into free agency looking for a quarterback.
But the thing is, though, I think Kirk Cousins elevates this offense better than any quarterback 100%. They have on their roster. Like 100%, he elevates this roster. And when they drafted Trey Lance, I think we all agreed and said that now Kyle Shanahan has the ability to open up his playbook a little wider, and you run different things because now he has a built-there quarterback. And so it's like we all said that if Trey Lance was going to hit for these guys, the sky was the limit for these guys. So it's like these guys are going to be able to do whatever they wanted on offense, and they wouldn't be stopped because now they got a dual threat quarterback. They're following every other team in the league. But now Brock Purdy's under center now, and Trey Lance he's fighting for the second string position with Sam Darnold.
I do think though, like if Trey Lance is going to be able to try to compete for this quarterback position, if Brock Purdy's probably going to end up starting the season, but if he's struggling, he ends up coming to the system and he somehow is struggling, which I don't think is possible in this system that's built for a quarterback. But if he ends up struggling, I think it'll work out fine. I think he'll be able to. I think Trey Lance could be built for this system what Kyle Shanahan is finally looking for in a quarterback. So,
but the thing is, though, do the Niners have that type of time to wait and have him develop again? with this perfectly constructed roster, because that's how I'm thinking about it right now. If these guys are consistently knocking on the door and are unable to get over the hump because of the quarterback position, why not just sign Kirk Cousins to a 1 to 2 year deal worth $25 to $30 million a year and have him lead the team to a Super Bowl run? I think if Kyle Shanahan gets his hands on Kirk Cousins with every majority of the guys on this roster back next year, these guys are going to win the Super Bowl with their eyes closed. That's just like there's no doubt in my mind these guys end up winning the Super Bowl with ease with a better quarterback under center. And I think, and I don't even rate Kirk Cousins like that. You know, obviously I know he's going to be done with this. He's going to be done with us once the season is over, but he's better than any quarterback they have on their roster. And with the Niners, time is not on their side. If they had like an extremely young roster, like I understand it, you know, but their offensive line is mid. Trent Williams is doing all the heavy carrying on that offensive line. He's not going to be there next year. He might come back if they end up fixing that quarterback position, but I highly doubt it. And it's like, you know, obviously their window of opportunity is closing really, really soon. And so it's like, I just think signing Kirk Cousins might be a very solid move for them, and it might end up paying off because that's the only thing that's been holding them back for all these years. They don't necessarily have the time to go back into the draft and redraft the quarterback. They don't have the type of time to go back to Trey Lance and try to develop him again. Like if the Niners wanted to do that, they would have gone with Trey Lance in this training camp, but they've made it very strong and clear that Brock Purdy is their guy. Although I disagree with that. I completely don't understand why they would go with Brock Purdy, but it worked for them towards the end of last season when he took over as a starting quarterback. You know, they're able to rip off a lot more.
But okay, but that's the thing though. That's the thing though. Like, it's not about time. Like, they drafted Trey Lance with the intention of, this guy's gonna start and he's gonna play for us. When you look at Brock Purdy last season, he was a rookie. Let's not forget Brock Purdy was a rookie. This guy isn't some sort of vet. He's not a guy that was a journeyman or anything. He was a rookie. You know, he came in, he fit what they needed to do in the system. I just don't understand the development part of what Trey Lance is going to be needed. Like what development exists for this. Now, of course, there's always growing pains with young quarterbacks, but that even existed with Brock Purdy. But Trey Lance coming out, was infinitely more talented than a guy like Brock Purdy. So he's going to be coming into a system that enhances quarterbacks. So I don't really see it as like he's going to need development, like some extra reps. Like, it's just he's coming into a system that enhances quarterbacks. And same way Brock Purdy was a rookie last season, but he looked perfectly fine in that system. Trey Lance might even be better in this system. So that's just how I see it. I don't think it's a time thing. I think if Brock Purdy begins to struggle, they have no problem pulling him out and just slotting in Trey Lance. So I don't when they have Brock Purdy as their guy, it's more so of like, okay, extension of last season. He did what he needed to do last season for us at the starting quarterback position. But it's now like, oh, this is our guy for the future. This guy, we're going to put him in there. He's going to be the starting quarterback for us for the foreseeable future. It's more so he's the guy that's getting the job done for us right now. But if he doesn't, we have no problem putting in Sam Darnold or putting in Trey Lance.
I get that. I get that. Obviously, you want to go with the quarterback that brought you a lot of success towards the end of the season. But the thing is, though, I just feel like it's not necessarily from a development standpoint with Trey Lance. I just feel like he's been riding the bench for so long. And last year, it was everything was looking up for him. He was coming into the training camp as the QB1. They made it very, very clear from the start that Jimmy G was not going to be the starting quarterback for this team, and they were looking to trade him. There was no buyers available, in the market, and so they told him, you're going to be our backup. We'll make you the highest paid backup, but don't think about getting onto the field unless some sort of injury happens to Trey Lance. And unfortunately, week 2 comes around, and they end up having some sort of crazy, very tough injury for Trey Lance, and now the season is going in a different direction. But they ended up starting Jimmy G, a guy that's very familiar with the system. But for Trey Lance, my thing is, I just feel like he needs a lot more playing time for us to kind of have an idea of how he's going to look with this offense, how he's going to look in this system and with this Niners team. I just feel like he's only started maybe a handful of games, maybe even less than that. I know he started maybe a couple games, maybe 2-3 years ago, Cardinals, Texans, or something like that, and then obviously week 1 last year against the Bears. But we can't really fault him for that game. It was literally a tsunami in Chicago. But I just think, like, you have to throw him out there. You have to throw him out into the fire at some point. And I feel like even if Brock Purdy isn't good this season, and you end up having to go back to Trey Lance, I'm not too sure how good of an offense these guys can be. How good of a team these guys can be, because we haven't seen much of Trey Lance. That's just really my only issue. I know Trey Lance can elevate this offense, but you need time with that. You have to be able to have him have reps with the first team in training camp and have reps in game, be the starting quarterback from week to week, so you can see him get better and better. But I'm not too sure if throwing him into the fire midseason is going to be any use or bring any success to the Niners, because of just the time that they haven't put in into Trey Lance, because of what they're doing with Brock Purdy right now. And so that's just really my only issue with it. And I think, at the end of the day, like, you're not going to have this nice of a roster for 10, 15 years. You probably only have this good of a roster maybe 5-7 years max, and then these guys might move in a different direction because of obviously the money issue. And some guys just get to a point where they understand that we gave it our best shot, and unfortunately our best wasn't enough, and so we're just going to go into a different situation and get paid a little bit more money. And it's not going to be better than the situation I was just in right now, but time. Our time is up. We weren't able to get over the hump, and we could put our hands up and say, it's all good. We gave it our best shot, just wasn't good enough. And so that's just my only issue with it. Obviously we've seen great teams come and go, and they didn't walk away with no Super Bowls. And I'm afraid that if the Niners don't make a potential move in next offseason for a quarterback, they're going to end up being one of these teams that look back 10, 15 years from now and are sitting there like, damn, we missed out on a key opportunity to go and grab ourselves a quarterback, even if that quarterback wasn't a top 10 quarterback or a top 5 quarterback at the time, to elevate our team and get us over the hump. That's just kind of how I see it. But aside from all of that, moving on from the San Francisco 49ers, let's go ahead and go to Seattle, the team that will be finishing second in this division now. Last year, the Seattle Seahawks surprised the world, shocked the world after moving off from their quarterback, their franchise guy, Russell Wilson, sending him over to Denver, getting a huge load of draft capital back. They ended up shocking the world, starting Geno Smith at quarterback, and ended up finishing off the season with a 9-8 record, making the playoffs. Unfortunately, they ran into the Niners and they ended up losing that playoff game, but nobody expected them to be there. They exceeded all the expectations. But going into this season, there's a lot of people that are saying these guys have the potential to be some sort of top 5 offense, and they're going to have some sort of crazy offense, and they're going to be even better than what they were last year. So I guess my question to you guys is, do you guys believe a regression is incoming for the Seattle Seahawks?
No. I like to poke fun about Geno Smith and, talk about regression is going to be incoming. But, when you look at it, depends on what are you referring to when you say regression is coming. I don't think he's going to have that outlier year in terms of his deep ball accuracy. I think he was just absolutely ridiculous with his accuracy, throwing deep passes. And of course, that's going to come down a bit. But people need to understand when they say Geno Smith is going to regress, I don't think they were looking at the level of throws that Geno Smith was putting out there. It wasn't just a schematic thing where guys were just getting open and he was hitting them. They're open. It wasn't a situation where, let's be honest, it's not like Tua where Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are getting open down in the field and he's just they're catching passes. No, it wasn't that. Geno Smith was genuinely hitting guys with throws that I seen from Aaron Rodgers. I don't think people were understood that. I think I counted 5 throws from Geno Smith that weren't completed, but I was like, yo, those were throws that I've seen from Aaron Rodgers. I've seen multiple times throughout the season where his accuracy was on point. I mean, he led the NFL in completion percentage. I think he was 3rd or 5th in passer rating. He was just absolutely phenomenal in terms of how he was playing. And I don't see regression incoming from him in terms of his stats going down a huge chunk. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. And now you add, to me, the best wide receiver in the entire draft in JSN, a guy who's going to be an elite separator, a route runner, a guy who's going to get open. So, of course, when people have this as a top 5 offense, why not? You got a quarterback that I think he had the most yards ever by a quarterback in Seahawk history. And guess who played for this team? Russell Wilson. So, I don't see regression coming in for Geno Smith. If you talk about a nosedive regression, no. If you're talking about his deep ball accuracy, sure. He had an outlier year in that sense, but outside of that, I think he's going to be perfectly fine. I think he's going to have a very, very solid year. And now they added they got Devin Witherspoon. They got Julian Love. They added pieces to this defensive team. I think they are pretty average in terms of pass coverage. I think they're around 14 or something. Their run defense was terrible, but they added Tremont Jones, I believe, and Jerron Reed. And so they beefed up their defensive line. They added more pieces on the secondary. So, when people talk about regressions incoming for this team, I'm just like, how does that make sense when they added a great wide receiver to this offense that was already good? They added more pieces to their offensive line, and the defense got better. I just don't understand how regression is going to be incoming for these guys. I think Geno Smith is going to be perfectly fine. Even during that stretch of games where they start off 6-3, and then those next 5 games, they had, I believe, 4 losses, and it was the Tampa game, the Raiders game. I think you guys lost. You beat the Rams, and then I think after that there's like a loss or so. Even during that stretch of games, Geno Smith, I think he had 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and his completion percentage was like 65% or something like that. So Geno Smith was perfectly fine even when you guys were losing. So I don't think that was a problem. I think the interior offensive line was terrible. I think that was a huge major issue. The run defense was, I mean, they gave up 200 yards to Josh Jacobs. They got ran over. It was like the team. I think everything else besides Geno is perfectly fine. So I don't really look at Geno Smith as an issue. I think the Seahawks are gonna be fine. I think they're gonna up their wins by 1 or 2, and which is perfectly fine in this division. I think 2 is definitely a possibility. They have the potential to be a top 5. Some could even argue they could potentially be the best offense in the NFL, and I have no problem with someone saying that. So, they might finish with 11 wins.
Being very nice today. Biggest, you're on mute, by the way.
We can't hear you, buddy.
We can't hear you. No,
Now
we hear you now. We hear you now.
No,
you
muted
muted again, but
it's better now. Yeah, you already know mine. Last year people already talking about regression this, regression that. After we have 5-6 wins, there's a guy that's a Vikings fan saying, "Oh yeah, regression is immediately happening the next season," and it's only 7 weeks to the first season. So you already know my answer. I don't see no regression happening. Like I said last year, the only way we're going is to the top. Every move that we made, every move that we have gotten, every draft pick that we made this year has only made us better. Picking up Witherspoon and Jason in the first round. Obviously, that type of talent to get to those type of players is phenomenal. Like I just said, getting Jaron Reed, Draymond Jones, getting Bobby Wagner back, getting Jamal Adams healthy on the defense. It's gonna add a lot. It's gonna add a lot to that defense to help that defense get better. And having our captain, our guy that was one of our best players on that team, Bobby Wagner, command the middle again. It's going to be phenomenal. And there's another linebacker that we were missing last year, Jordan Brooks, him coming back this year after, torn ACL as well. So, we have 2 fantastic linebackers coming back. Jamal Adams is coming back, and I can't wait. I feel like our defense is going to get much better than it was last year. Our interior D-line was getting torn apart. Our middle linebackers were getting cooked on the run game, and we're just getting gashed up the front. So I feel like, this year is going to be a different approach. We're going to come harder in the inside. And I feel like we're going to be a much, much better run defense, and our pass defense as well is going to be much, much better. So like people said, Geno Smith, they think it's an outlier, but for me, it's not. And I feel like he's perfect for the system. This is the type of quarterback that Pete Carroll likes, the type of quarterback that Pete Carroll wants. He has the targets on the offensive end. He has JSN, he has DK Metcalf, he has Tyler Lockett, and we got a breakout running back last year, Kenneth Walker, a guy that had 1,100 yards and big hitter. He had 7 touchdowns or 8 touchdowns. I'm not too sure how much touchdowns he had on the run ground, but he missed a couple games. And if he can stay healthy this year, that's our one issue with running backs. Other than Marshawn Lynch, all of our running backs always been hurt. So I feel like, if he can stay healthy for a full year, full season, we got a dynamic offense. And I feel like, even as of right now, I can say that we have a top 2 to top 3 offense. And I feel like that's how we're going to end the season. So I don't see no regression happening to my Seahawks. We ended 9-8 last year. Like I predicted, I think we get 11 wins this year. So let's go Seahawks.
Although I haven't finished 9-8. If somebody came and told me that the Seattle Seahawks will be finishing the season below 500, I honestly wouldn't disagree with them. I wouldn't fight it. My only issue with the Seattle Seahawks is
hater alert.
Let me land. You mentioned even when they struggled, Geno Smith was quote unquote still good. I highly disagree with that. He in the last 9 games, in his last 9 starts, they went 3-6 in that stretch, 12 turnovers. That if that doesn't concern you, I'm not too sure what will. And we saw those turnovers each and every week. And going back to last season, I was raising concerns then, and it's the same now. I'm raising concerns now. Like, I think towards the end of the season, we kind of saw who Geno Smith really was as a quarterback, who he really is as a quarterback. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, he's going to have like some sort of terrible season. I just don't think he's going to be playing at that type of level that he was playing at in the first half of the season. And I think how he was playing in that second half of the season is who he really is. And so I think that's going to carry over into this upcoming season. And I'm not, obviously they have some tough games on the schedule.
Keep in mind, at worst, he still would have finished with a top 3 completion percentage in the NFL with those last 9 games that you're referring to. So
those 12 turnovers are something I just can't necessarily overlook. There's no completion percentage or touchdown to interception ratio that I can look at and confidently say, Geno Smith still plays solid during a stretch where these guys went 3-6 in his last.
I mean, but you're also ignoring the fact that there were a lot of factors that led to them. Like, are you gonna sit here and tell me Geno Smith was responsible for these guys ending out the season like that?
I think he played. I think he played an extremely large part in them not and their downfall towards the end of the last season. Keep in mind, they only made the playoffs because you guys folded. Just keep in mind. They made it on the last day.
Unfair assessment, though. They had issues elsewhere. I mean, their run defense was damn near bottom 5 in the NFL. If anything, they're one of the worst units.
Did they get any better for the run defense?
They signed Draymond Jones. They have Bobby Wagner. They have Jerron Reed, and they're getting Jamal Adams back, and they have Jordan Brooks. Of course, they're gonna get better. They signed defensive pieces, and they're getting guys back that are healthy. What are they gonna get? Are they gonna get worse on the end?
I'm not too sure if they get any better with those acquisitions. I know Jamal Adams coming back is going to be a huge help. Bobby Wagner, we'll have to wait and see. Although he had a great year with the Rams, a lot of people underlooked him on the Rams, but their D line, I'm not too sure. I'm not too confident in that D line. I think first things first. Although they took a very strong corner with that first round pick, I think it would have been better for them to take a defensive lineman to help beef up that line. Obviously, that was their main concern. Last year, I was saying the same exact thing. I said they could have knocked off 2 birds with 1 stone, grab themselves a quarterback, grab themselves a guy on the defensive line, and move on in that situation. But everybody disagreed with me on that. Everybody said, no, the Seattle Seahawks are exceeding expectations. They're going to let them make the playoffs, let them do their thing. Geno Smith is the guy. Aside from all of that, they still have the same issues going into this upcoming season. We just don't know if they're going to be able to stop the run. We know how great their secondary is. It's going to be a long day for any elite wide receiver to.
Well, that's the point, though. They were fourth. Their passing, even their pass coverage was like 14th. They weren't. They were average at best. They weren't particularly great. And now they get a guy who's arguably the best corner in the draft alongside Christian Gonzalez. Their secondary is obviously going to be better, and they have Jamal Adams coming back. So when I look at this unit, there's only one way up from here at this point. They got Draymond Jones, they got Jerron Reed, they got Bobby Wagner, who's good. They got Jordan Brooks. Now they have Jamal Adams, and now they got Devin Witherspoon. That's a bunch of talent that they're going to get back or that they've signed. I just don't see how their defense is going to remain relatively the same or worse. I just don't get that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say the Seattle Seahawks are going to have an elite defense. Absolutely not. I think their secondary is going to be much better. I think their secondary could finish as a top 5 secondary potentially. But I don't see. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that their run defense is going to be, a top 5 run defense. They're going to be like the Titans. No, but I do think that they're going to be improved on that end, and offensively they're going to be even better.
Their offensive line issues that still don't scare you. They still have offensive line problems. That hasn't changed.
I mean, now you get another guy on the wide receiver end in JSN, who's going to be another separator, and Geno Smith performed even with that offensive line being particularly bad last season. I think that just helps him even more when he has a wideout that he can throw to that's going to get off the line and release every single time. So I only see that this offense is going to be even better. And if somebody said the Seahawks going to have the best scoring offense in 2023, I'd be like, okay, that's a fair argument. I can agree with that.
I think teams just got a lot more film on him now, man. Obviously, coming into last season, nobody had any film on Geno Smith. He was a journeyman in the NFL. Found himself a home in Seattle. Started off the season extremely well. Didn't end the season extremely well, my
thing is like when people why didn't people notice it, like the throws that Geno Smith were making? It was not just he's catching people off guard. This guy was legitimately making throws that elite quarterbacks were making. Like, he was making throws that only the elite of the elite were making. Geno Smith was throwing it into windows that were absolutely ridiculous. There's a reason why his completion percentage was like that. Now, do I expect him to lead the NFL in completion percentage? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I do expect him to have a high completion percentage because of the throws that he were making. Those were not no average throws. Those were elite quarterback type of throws. So, you pick up a guy like JSN with the Tyler Lockett, and you have DK Metcalf, and you have Kenneth Walker, and they drafted a guy in Zach Charbonnet. I think that they're going to be a good offense. I think maybe even top 2, top maybe the best in the entire league.
I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one. I just honestly think, I think the Seattle Seahawks do have that type of potential, with all their added weapons, everybody that they got. But I like when teams address their needs in the draft, and I like when they address their needs in the offseason in free agency. I'm not too sure if the Seattle Seahawks did that to the best of their ability, but I guess there's only one way to prove it, and that's when Week 1 rolls around. But I think we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Any final words before we sign off here?
Man, the NFL season is ever approaching, man. Every single episode we get closer and closer.
Like I said, man, it's going to be a fun season, man. I cannot wait for the season to start, man. So, we got about 4 weeks left. We're going to be rolling out these episodes. Just, be here for the content.
We got the NFC West down today. Next, we got the AFC. We got the AFC West next. I think that's going to be a little bit interesting. Might spark up a little bit of a discussion. But of course, we're going to have to stay tuned for that. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. Really appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Yes, now late, now that's overkill.